Chief Petty Officer Marcus Stone pressed his eye to the scope, his breath forming small clouds in the frigid mountain air. What he saw through the lens made his blood run cold. Below in the valley, enemy armor and troops stretched as far as he could see, thousands of soldiers preparing for an assault that would crush 3 coalition outposts by dawn. Stone keyed his radio with trembling fingers. "Base, this is Bravo Team. We've got a serious problem up here. Before we dive into this story, I'd love to know, where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments below. Now, let's go back to that fateful morning when everything changed for SEAL Team Bravo. The ridge was colder than Stone expected. Chief Petty Officer Marcus Stone pulled his jacket tighter as he crawled the last few feet to the observation point. Behind him, his 3 teammates moved like shadows between the rocks. "Chen, Rodriguez, Martinez, hold position," Stone whispered into his headset. "I'm going up to take a look." The climb took 20 minutes. Stone's hands were numb by the time he reached the outcrop that gave him a clear view of the valley below. He pulled out his scope and aimed it down toward the suspected enemy positions. What he saw made him forget about the cold. Trucks. Dozens of them. Maybe hundreds. They stretched along the valley floor like a long metal snake. Between the vehicles, soldiers moved in organized groups. Stone counted tank formations, artillery pieces, and supply convoys that seemed to go on forever. "Holy hell," he breathed. Stone grabbed his camera and started taking pictures. Through the lens, he could see officers pointing at maps. Communications equipment was being set up. This wasn't a patrol or a small unit movement. This was an entire division preparing for something big. He keyed his radio. "Chen, you getting this on the scanner?" "Roger, Chief." Picking up lots of chatter. "They're talking about dawn operations. Multiple targets." Stone felt his stomach drop. Dawn was 6 hours away. The 3 coalition outposts in this sector held maybe 300 soldiers total. If this force hit them all at once, it would be a massacre. "Martinez, how's our signal strength back to base?" "Good, Chief." Crystal clear. Stone took more photos. He needed proof of what he was seeing. Command wouldn't believe this without evidence. He zoomed in on the artillery positions, counting gun tubes and ammunition stacks. The enemy had enough firepower to level every coalition base in the region. A sound made him freeze. Voices, getting closer. Stone looked down and saw 2 enemy soldiers climbing up the same path he had used. "Bravo Team, we've got company," he whispered. 2 hostiles moving up the south approach. "Copy, Chief." "We see them," Rodriguez replied. "You want us to take them?" Stone watched the soldiers through his scope. They were young, probably just doing a routine patrol. But if they spotted the SEAL team's position, everything would go to hell fast. Negative. Let them pass if possible. The enemy soldiers stopped about 50 meters below Stone's position. One of them pulled out binoculars and started scanning the ridgeline. Stone pressed himself flat against the rocks and tried not to breathe. Minutes passed like hours. Stone could hear the soldiers talking, but couldn't understand the words. One of them laughed at something. They seemed relaxed, not like they were hunting for anyone. Finally, the voices started moving away. Stone waited another 10 minutes before lifting his head. The soldiers were gone, but they had left boot prints in the dirt that led right past the SEAL's equipment cache. "Chief, we need to move," Chen's voice crackled through the radio. "More patrols heading this way from the east." Stone grabbed his gear and started working his way back down the ridge. His mind was racing. The enemy force in the valley was massive, but that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the timing. Dawn operations meant they were planning to hit the coalition bases when most of the soldiers were still sleeping. He reached the team's position just as Martinez spotted movement on the next ridge over. "Contact, contact!" Martinez hissed. "Armed patrol, 200 meters northwest." Stone looked where Martinez was pointing. A squad of enemy soldiers was moving directly toward their position. These weren't casual patrollers like the others. They had their weapons ready and were moving with purpose. "They made us," Rodriguez said quietly. Stone knew he was right. Somehow, the enemy had figured out there were coalition forces in the area. Maybe they had found tracks, or maybe one of the earlier patrols had spotted something. "Pack it up. We're moving now," Stone ordered. The team started gathering their equipment, but Stone could see it was too late. The enemy patrol had stopped and was pointing in their direction. One of the soldiers was already reaching for his radio. Stone grabbed his own radio and opened the channel to base. "Overwatch, this is Bravo Team. Priority traffic. We have discovered a major enemy buildup preparing dawn assault on coalition positions. Estimate division strength. Photos and coordinates follow." The enemy patrol opened fire before he could finish the transmission. Captain Mara Delaney stood in the operations center watching the large screen that showed friendly aircraft positions. 3 blue dots were moving toward the mountains where Bravo Team had gone silent 20 minutes ago. "Viper flight, you are cleared hot," the air controller said into his headset. "Target area is grid 3-4-7-2-1-5. Friendlies are danger close." Delaney crossed her arms and watched the dots move deeper into enemy territory. Major Thompson, the squadron commander, stood beside her with a grim expression. "Think they can get them out?" Thompson asked. "Those F-16s are good, but that's a lot of hostile territory," Delaney replied. The radio crackled. "Overwatch, Viper 1. We have visual on multiple SAM sites. Counting at least 6 SA-17 launchers in the immediate area. Colonel Hayes, the base commander, joined them at the screen. Can they punch through?" "We're about to find out," Thompson said. The lead F-16 pilot's voice came through clearly. "Viper 1 engaging SAM Site Alpha. Fox 3 away." On the screen, one of the blue dots suddenly changed course, diving toward the mountains. Seconds later, an explosion lit up the distant peaks. "Good hit on SAM Alpha," the pilot reported. "Moving to engage Site Bravo." Delaney held her breath. The second F-16 was making its attack run when the radio exploded with noise. "Missile launch, missile launch. Viper 2, you have SA-17 tracking hot. Braking right, deploying chaff." The radio went silent for what felt like forever. Then came the voice everyone was dreading. "Viper 2 is hit. Repeat, Viper 2 is hit. I'm going down." On the screen, one of the blue dots disappeared. "Viper 1, abort mission and return to base immediately," Hayes ordered. "Sir, I can still get to the SEALs." "Negative, Viper 1. RTB now." "That's an order." Delaney watched the remaining F-16 turn away from the mountains. The rescue attempt had failed before it really started. "We need to get a helicopter in there," Thompson said. Hayes nodded. "Dust off 7-2, you're cleared for immediate launch. Medical evacuation mission to grid 3-4-7-2-1-5. Delaney walked over to the window and watched the UH-60 Black Hawk spin up its rotors. She knew the crew chief, Sergeant Williams. "Good man. Steady hands." The helicopter lifted off and headed toward the mountains. Delaney could track its progress on the radio chatter. "Dust off 7-2, be advised you're entering active SAM engagement zone," the controller warned. "Copy, Overwatch. We see the smoke from Viper 2. Still going in." The helicopter pilot was trying to stay low, using the terrain to mask his approach. Delaney could hear the strain in his voice as he reported his position every few minutes. "Dust off 7-2, I have visual on enemy positions. Lots of them. This place is crawling with hostiles. Any sign of our boys?" "Negative contact with friendly forces." "Wait, I'm getting radio interference. Someone's trying to." The transmission cut off. Then came the sound that made Delaney's blood run cold. The distinctive whoosh of a surface-to-air missile launch. Missile launch, missile launch. Taking evasive action. The radio filled with the sound of the helicopter's engines straining as the pilot tried to outrun the missile. It didn't work. Mayday, mayday. Dust-off 7-2 is going down. Engine failure. Looking for a landing zone. Hayes grabbed the microphone. Dust-off 7-2, what's your status? Static. Then a weak voice. We're down. Aircraft is destroyed. Crew is alive but we're surrounded. Need immediate extraction. Now they had 7 people trapped in enemy territory instead of 4. Thompson slammed his hand against the wall. We just fed them right into the meat grinder. Sir, I can take my A-10s in there, Delaney said. We're built for this kind of fight. Hayes shook his head. Absolutely not. We've already lost 2 aircraft and 4 aircrew. I'm not sending anyone else into that death trap. Colonel, those men are going to die if we don't do something. And more men are going to die if we keep throwing aircraft at those SAM sites. The answer is no, Captain. The radio crackled again. This time it was Stone's voice, weak but clear. Overwatch, Bravo team. We're still alive but barely. Enemy has us pinned down on the ridge. They're moving up for final assault. We've got maybe 2 hours before they overrun us. Hayes keyed the microphone. Bravo team, reinforcements are en route. Hold your position. Stone's laugh was bitter. What reinforcements, sir? You got any more aircraft you want to donate to the enemy? Hayes didn't answer. There was nothing to say. Delaney stared out the window at her A-10 sitting on the flight line. The aircraft was ugly and slow, but it was built to take punishment. It was designed for exactly this kind of mission. Colonel, she said quietly, my aircraft. Captain Delaney, I gave you an order. No more aircraft. That airspace is closed. Over the radio, Stone's voice came through one more time. Enemies starting their final push. If anyone's coming, they better come now. Then the radio went quiet. Delaney looked at the clock on the wall. In 4 hours, the sun would be up. If Stone was right about the enemy buildup, thousands of soldiers would die at dawn. And 7 good men would be dead on that ridge because she followed orders instead of doing what was right. Delaney sat on her bunk staring at the photos spread across her small desk. Captain Jake Morrison, the F-16 pilot who went down. She had played poker with him just last week. He owed her $20 from a bad bluff. Sergeant Williams from the helicopter crew. His wife had just sent him cookies from home. He shared them with everyone in the ready room, talking about his daughter's first steps. She picked up Morrison's photo. His smile looked back at her, frozen in time from some squadron barbecue months ago. Now he was either dead or sitting in an enemy prison camp. A knock at her door broke the silence. Come in. Lieutenant Rodriguez stepped inside. Her weapons systems officer looked like he hadn't slept in days. His flight suit was wrinkled and his hair was a mess. Ma'am, I heard the colonel shut down all air ops in Sector 7. That's right. No more aircraft. Too dangerous. Rodriguez closed the door behind him and sat down in the only chair. Those SEALs are going to die up there. I know. One of them is my brother. Delaney looked up from the photos. What? Petty Officer Danny Chen. He's my little brother. Different fathers, same mother. He joined the Navy 2 years after I did. Rodriguez's voice was steady, but his hands were shaking. Said he wanted to be like his big brother. Delaney set down Morrison's photo. Rodriguez, I'm sorry. I didn't know. Nobody does. We don't have the same last name. Danny always said it was better that way. Didn't want people thinking he got special treatment because his brother was an officer. Rodriguez pulled out his phone and showed Delaney a picture. 2 young men in Navy dress uniforms, arms around each other's shoulders. Rodriguez looked proud. The other one, Danny, was grinning at the camera. This was taken at his graduation from SEAL training. He was so happy that day. Said he was finally going to make a difference. Delaney studied the photo. Danny looked barely old enough to shave, let alone fight in the mountains with Stone's team. How old is he? 22. Just turned 22 last month. I sent him a care package with his favorite candy. Sour Patch Kids. He's been eating them since he was a kid. Rodriguez put the phone away and looked directly at Delaney. Ma'am, I know what you're thinking. I can see it in your face. You want to take our bird up there. The colonel made it clear. No aircraft. The colonel's not going to lose his little brother tonight. Delaney stood up and walked to the small window. Outside, the flight line was quiet. Her A-10 sat in its parking spot, loaded with Maverick missiles and 30mm rounds. Ready to fight. Even if I wanted to go, it's suicide. You saw what happened to Morrison and Williams. Those SAM sites will cut us to pieces. Our bird's different. Built to take hits and keep flying. Not that many hits. Rodriguez stood up. Ma'am, permission to speak freely? Go ahead. You know what Danny told me the last time we talked? He said the reason he joined the SEALs was because he wanted to help people who couldn't help themselves. He said that's what heroes do. Delaney turned away from the window. Rodriguez, I understand what you're going through, but... No ma'am, you don't understand. Nobody understands unless they have family out there. Rodriguez's voice was getting louder. My mother calls me every week asking about Danny. Wants to know if he's safe. What am I supposed to tell her when this is over? You tell her he died doing his job. His job was reconnaissance. His job was supposed to be safe. Delaney picked up Morrison's photo again. Nobody's job is safe anymore. They sat in silence for several minutes. Outside, she could hear aircraft engines running maintenance checks. Normal sounds of a busy air base. But nothing felt normal anymore. The radio on her desk crackled to life. Intelligence briefings were coming through on the command frequency. She reached over and turned up the volume. Enemy intercepts confirmed dawn assault on coalition positions. Estimated time of attack is 0530 hours. All units are advised that outposts Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie are primary targets. Rodriguez looked at the clock on the wall. That's 3 hours from now. The radio continued. Intelligence estimates enemy strength at full division level. Repeat, we are facing division-level assault on 3 isolated outposts with limited defensive capabilities. Delaney did the math in her head. 3 outposts, maybe 100 soldiers each. Against an entire division. It would be over in minutes. They're all going to die, Rodriguez said quietly. Maybe reinforcements will arrive in time. What reinforcements? The nearest combat unit is 8 hours away. By then it'll be over. Another transmission came through the radio. This one was weaker, breaking up with static. Overwatch, this is Bravo team. Enemies moving up the ridge. We can hear them coming. Estimate 20 minutes until they reach our position. Stone's voice was calm, professional. Like he was reporting the weather instead of his own death. Copy, Bravo team. Help is coming. Appreciate the sentiment, Overwatch, but we both know that's not true. Just wanted to say thanks for everything. Tell our families we did our job. The transmission ended. Rodriguez stood up and walked to the door. Ma'am, I'm going to prep our aircraft for flight. Rodriguez, we don't have orders. He turned back to her. We don't have orders not to either. Not yet. After he left, Delaney sat alone with the photos of Morrison and Williams. Outside, she could hear Rodriguez talking to the ground crew, getting their A-10 ready for what might be their last mission. Delaney walked out to the flight line at 0200 hours. The night air was cold and quiet except for the distant hum of generators. Her A-10 sat waiting in the darkness, its twin engines and straight wings giving it the look of a predator ready to hunt. Rodriguez was already there, running through the pre-flight checklist with Staff Sergeant Torres, their crew chief. "How's she looking, Torres?" Delaney asked. "Perfect, ma'am. Full load of Mavericks, 2,000 rounds of 30 Mike, and enough fuel to stay up there all day." Torres patted the aircraft's armored nose. "This old girl's ready to fight." Delaney climbed up the ladder and settled into the cockpit. Everything was exactly where it should be. Weapons armed. Navigation programmed. Radio frequencies loaded. Rodriguez had thought of everything. She ran her hands over the controls she knew by heart. Stick, throttles, weapons panel. This aircraft had brought her home from 12 combat missions. Tonight might be unlucky 13. "Ma'am, you sure about this?" Torres asked from the ground. "No. But I'm doing it anyway." Rodriguez climbed into the back seat and started bringing the navigation system online. Flight plans loaded. Low-level route through the mountains, staying under radar coverage as long as possible. "What about getting back?" "We'll figure that out later." Delaney started the engines. The twin turbofans spooled up with their familiar whine. She had been flying this aircraft for 4 years. It felt like home. "Ma'am, you know this is career suicide, right?" Rodriguez said through the intercom. "Only if we survive." "What about me?" "Colonel finds out I helped prep this mission, I'm looking at court-martial." Delaney paused with her hand on the throttles. "Rodriguez, I'm ordering you to stay here. This is my decision, not yours." "With respect, ma'am, that's not how this works. You're my pilot. I'm your WSO. We're a team. Your brother's up there. I get it. But I won't take you down with me. Ma'am, Danny wouldn't want me to sit here while you go alone. And neither would I." Delaney looked back at him. Rodriguez was young, maybe 26. Good officer. Bright future if he didn't throw it away tonight. "Rodriguez, I'm giving you a direct order. Get out of my aircraft." "No ma'am. That's insubordination." "Yes ma'am. Court-martial me later." Before Delaney could argue further, headlights swept across the flight line. A vehicle was coming toward them fast. "Security forces," Torres said into his radio. "You better go now if you're going." Delaney pushed the throttles forward. The A-10 started rolling toward the taxiway. The vehicle followed them, staying just behind the wingtip. Through her mirrors, Delaney could see it was Colonel Hayes in his staff car. She reached the end of the taxiway and stopped. Hayes got out of his car and walked up to the aircraft. He was in his flight suit with a pistol on his hip. Delaney shut down the engines. "Captain Delaney, step out of that aircraft immediately." She climbed down the ladder and stood at attention. "Sir? What the hell do you think you're doing?" "Sir, I was conducting a routine engine test." "With a full combat load at 2 in the morning?" "Sir, I wanted to make sure the weapon systems were functioning properly." Hayes stepped closer. "Captain, I know exactly what you're planning. And I'm ordering you to stand down." "Sir, those men are going to die. A lot of men are going to die tonight. That's war. But I'm not going to let you add to that number by throwing your life away on an impossible mission." Delaney looked past Hayes at her aircraft. Rodriguez was still in the back seat, waiting for her decision. "Sir, request permission to speak freely." "Go ahead. If those SEALs die, and then the outposts get overrun at dawn, how many soldiers do we lose? 300? 400? All because we were too scared to take a risk. It's not about being scared, Captain. It's about being smart. Sometimes being smart means doing the wrong thing." Hayes was quiet for a long moment. Around them, the night was still except for the sound of distant aircraft engines. "If you take off, you'll be disobeying a direct order." "Yes, sir." "Court-martial offense." "Yes, sir." "Assuming you survive." "Yes, sir." Hayes looked at the A-10, then back at Delaney. "How confident are you that you can get those men out?" Honestly? Maybe 30%. That's not very good odds. It's better than 0%. Hayes walked back to his car. For a moment, Delaney thought he was going to call base security and have her arrested. Instead, he got in the driver's seat and started the engine. He rolled down his window. "Captain?" "Sir? I never saw you leave." Hayes drove away, leaving tire marks in the dirt. Torres was grinning when Delaney climbed back into the cockpit. "Ma'am, that was beautiful." "Torres, if anyone asks, you were in the shop all night working on hydraulic systems." "Copy that, ma'am." "Good hunting." Delaney restarted the engines and taxied to the runway. No clearance from the tower. No flight plan filed. No backup coming. She pushed the throttles to full power and released the brakes. The A-10 rolled down the runway and lifted into the darkness, heading toward the mountains where 7 men were waiting to die. Delaney kept the A-10 low, skimming between mountain peaks at 200 feet. The terrain following radar painted green lines on her display, showing the valleys and ridges rushing past in the darkness. 30 minutes to target area, Rodriguez called from the back seat. "Copy." "Any radar contacts?" "Negative. We're below their coverage for now." The aircraft bucked and rolled in the mountain turbulence. Delaney kept her hands steady on the controls, feeling every gust of wind through the stick. Flying this low at night was dangerous even in good weather. But it was the only way to stay invisible. "There," Rodriguez said, pointing ahead. "Orange glow at 2 o'clock. That's where Morrison went down." Delaney could see the wreckage burning on a distant mountainside. The F-16 had hit hard and scattered debris across half an acre. No chance Morrison survived that impact. "Poor bastard," Rodriguez muttered. "Stay focused. We're not helping him by joining him." They flew deeper into enemy territory. Through her night vision goggles, Delaney could see vehicle lights moving along the valley roads below. Lots of them. The intelligence reports were right about the enemy buildup. "Radar contact, 12 o'clock. Hi," Rodriguez announced. "MiG-29, probably on patrol." Delaney looked up and saw the fighter's navigation lights moving across the sky 3 miles above them. "He see us?" "Negative. We're in the terrain clutter. But if we climb, he'll nail us." "Then we stay low." The radio crackled with a weak signal. Stone's voice came through, barely audible over the static. Any station, this is Bravo team. We are under heavy fire. Estimate 15 minutes before position is overrun." Delaney keyed her mic. "Bravo team, Guardian 1-1. We're coming." "Guardian? Who the hell is Guardian?" "Your ride home." "What's your exact position?" Stone transmitted grid coordinates. Rodriguez punched them into the navigation system. 10 miles out, he reported. "Roger, Bravo team. Hang tight. Guardian inbound your location." Delaney pulled the A-10 into a climb, leaving the safety of the low terrain. Immediately, her radar warning receiver started screaming. "SAM launch, SAM launch." Rodriguez shouted. SA-17 from the north." Delaney saw the missile's exhaust trail streaking toward them like an angry firefly. She yanked the aircraft into a hard left turn and punched out chaff and flares. "Brake right, brake right." The SA-17 flashed past their right wing, missing by maybe 50 feet. Delaney rolled inverted and dove back toward the deck. "That was close," Rodriguez breathed. "Too close." "Where did it come from?" "Sam's sight on the ridgeline. Looks like they moved it since the last intelligence update." Another radar warning. This time from behind them. "MiG's turning our way," Rodriguez reported. "He's got us on radar." Delaney kept the A-10 low, using the mountains to break the fighter's radar lock. But she knew the MiG pilot was smart enough to vector other aircraft toward their position. "Guardian 1-1, this is Bravo team. We can see your lights. You're about 2 miles south of our position." Delaney looked ahead and saw muzzle flashes on a ridge line. The SEALs were in a running firefight with enemy forces closing in from 3 sides. Bravo team, mark your position with infrared strobe. Roger, IR strobe is active. Through her night vision, Delaney could see the strobe light blinking on the ridge. She also saw something that made her stomach drop. Enemy soldiers were everywhere. Not just a patrol or a company. There had to be at least 2 battalions moving up the slopes toward the SEALs' position. Rodriguez whispered. Look at all those troops. I see them. Bravo team, you've got major enemy movement from the east and west. Looks like they're trying to surround you. Copy that, Guardian. We're almost out of ammo. Whatever you're going to do, do it fast. Delaney lined up for an attack run on the eastern approach where most of the enemy soldiers were advancing. She armed her Maverick missiles and selected the 30mm cannon. Rodriguez, I'm going hot. Target the troops moving up the eastern slope. Roger, I have multiple targets. Ready to engage. Delaney put the aircraft into a shallow dive, accelerating toward the enemy positions. At 2 miles out, she fired her first Maverick. The missile streaked away and exploded in the middle of an enemy squad. Bodies scattered like leaves. Good hit, Rodriguez called. Troops are scattering. Delaney fired a second Maverick, then a third. Each explosion lit up the mountainside and sent enemy soldiers running for cover. But as she pulled up from the attack run, her radar warning receiver went crazy. Multiple SAM launches. Rodriguez shouted. I count 4, maybe 5 missiles inbound. Delaney threw the A-10 into violent evasive maneuvers, dropping chaff and flares as fast as the system would dispense them. One missile flashed past the canopy. Another exploded close enough to rock the aircraft. Then she felt the hit. The A-10 shuddered and yawed to the right. Warning lights filled the cockpit like a Christmas tree. Engine fire warning, hydraulic failure, electrical problems. We're hit. Rodriguez called. Right engine's on fire. Delaney shut down the burning engine and tried to regain control. The aircraft was flying, but barely. Hydraulic fluid was streaming from the right wing, and the electrical system was failing. Can we make it home? Rodriguez asked. Delaney looked at her instruments. Oil pressure dropping on the remaining engine. Flight controls sluggish. Fuel leak from the right wing tank. Negative. We're going down. On the radio, Stone's voice was urgent. Guardian 1-1, enemies making their final push. We need immediate support or we're done. Delaney looked down at the ridge where the SEALs were making their last stand. Then she looked at her crippled aircraft's weapon display. She still had 4 Maverick missiles and 800 rounds of 30mm ammunition. Rodriguez, we've got one more attack run in us. Ma'am, if we go in again, we're not coming out. I know. Delaney pushed the throttle forward on her remaining engine. The A-10 responded sluggishly, black smoke trailing from the dead right engine. Ma'am, we should punch out, Rodriguez said. Find somewhere to crash land away from the enemy. Negative. Those men don't have anywhere to run. She could see the SEAL's muzzle flashes getting weaker. They were almost out of ammunition. Enemy soldiers were within 100 meters of their position, moving up the ridge in organized assault formations. Bravo team, Guardian 1-1. One more attack run coming your way. Keep your heads down. Guardian, you're smoking pretty bad up there. You sure about this? Affirmative. Mark the closest enemy positions with IR laser. Stone's voice was calm despite everything. Roger. Lasing targets now. Delaney lined up for her final attack run. Through her targeting system, she could see the laser designations Rodriguez was calling out. Enemy troops were everywhere, closing in like wolves around wounded prey. I've got the northern group, she told Rodriguez. You take the eastern approach. Copy. Missiles armed and ready. The A-10 dove toward the ridge, its remaining engines straining to keep them airborne. Warning lights flashed in the cockpit, but Delaney ignored them. She had tunnel vision now, focused only on the enemy soldiers threatening the men on that ridge. At 1 mile out, she fired her first Maverick. The missile struck the center of an enemy squad, scattering bodies across the rocks. "Good hit," Rodriguez called. Firing number 2. His missile took out a machine gun position that had been pouring fire onto the SEALs. The explosion lit up the entire mountainside. Delaney squeezed the trigger on her 30mm cannon. The GAU-8 roared to life, spitting depleted uranium rounds at 4,000 rounds per minute. She walked the gunfire across the enemy positions, turning soldiers and equipment into debris. But as she pulled up from the attack, the inevitable happened. "Sam launch, Sam launch!" Rodriguez shouted. Dead ahead. Delaney saw the SA-17 missile streaking toward them. With only one engine and damaged flight controls, there was nowhere to run. The missile slammed into their left wing. The A-10 rolled inverted and started spinning toward the ground. Delaney fought the controls, trying to level the wings, but the aircraft was breaking apart around them. "Eject, eject," she yelled. "Negative. I can see a clearing." "You can make it." Rodriguez was right. There was a small flat area about half a mile from the SEAL's position. If she could keep the aircraft together for another 30 seconds, they might survive the crash. Delaney pulled back on the stick with everything she had. The A-10 leveled off just long enough for her to aim at the clearing. Then the remaining engine quit. They hit the ground hard. The aircraft bounced twice, shedding pieces of wing and fuselage, before sliding to a stop against a pile of rocks. Delaney's head snapped forward into her helmet visor. Stars exploded behind her eyes. When her vision cleared, she could smell smoke and jet fuel. "Rodriguez. You alive back there?" "Yeah, but my leg's messed up. Can't move it." Delaney unstrapped herself and turned around. Rodriguez was conscious but pale. His left leg was twisted at an odd angle. "Definitely broken," she said. "Can you walk?" "Not a chance." Through the cracked canopy, Delaney could see muzzle flashes on the ridge above them. The fight was still going on. She grabbed her rifle and survival radio. "Stone, Guardian 1-1. We're down but alive. What's your status?" "Guardian, that last attack run broke their assault. Enemies pulling back to regroup." "How bad are you hurt?" "I'm mobile. Rodriguez has a broken leg." "Copy. Can you make it to our position?" Delaney looked at the steep terrain between their crash site and the ridge. It would take 20 minutes to climb up there, and she'd have to carry Rodriguez. "Negative. You come to us. This position's more defensible anyway." It took Stone's team 15 minutes to reach the crash site. Chief Petty Officer Stone arrived first, followed by his 3 teammates. Danichin was the youngest, just like Rodriguez had said. Danny ran straight to the wreckage when he saw Rodriguez. "Holy shit, that's my brother." Rodriguez grinned despite the pain. "Hey, little brother. Told you I'd watch your back." Danny helped pull Rodriguez from the aircraft while Stone checked Delaney for injuries. "Ma'am, you saved our lives up there. That was some hell of a flying." "Just doing my job, Chief." Stone looked back at the burning wreckage of her A-10. "That was a lot more than just doing your job." They set up a defensive perimeter around the crash site while Stone called for extraction on his survival radio. With the SAM sites destroyed by Delaney's attack, helicopters could finally get through. "Overwatch, Bravo Team. All personnel accounted for. Request immediate medical evacuation at Grid 3-4-7-3-2-1. Copy, Bravo Team. Dust-off birds are inbound. ETA 20 minutes. Rodriguez was lying on a stretcher they'd made from aircraft parts. Danny sat beside him, sharing a pack of Sour Patch Kids he'd been saving. "Mom's going to kill us both when she finds out about this," Danny said. "Only if we tell her." "Right. This stays between us." Delaney sat on a rock watching the sun come up over the mountains. The enemy dawn assault had been called off when their commanders realized the coalition forces knew about it. 3 outposts and maybe 1,000 soldiers had been saved by 7 men on a ridge. Stone sat down beside her. "Ma'am, you know you're probably going to face court-martial for this." "Yeah, I figured." "Was it worth it?" Delaney looked at Rodriguez and his brother sharing candy while they waited for the helicopters. She thought about Morrison and Williams and all the other pilots who hadn't made it home. "Ask me in 20 years, Chief." The sound of rotor blades echoed through the valley as the rescue helicopters appeared on the horizon. "Ma'am," Stone said quietly, "I don't know what they'll do to you back at base. But I want you to know something. You're the kind of pilot we pray for when we're in trouble. The kind who comes when nobody else will." Delaney stood up and shouldered her rifle. "Let's go home, Chief." Captain Mara Delaney's courage in the face of impossible odds reminds us that sometimes doing what's right means breaking the rules. If this story touched your heart, please like and subscribe for more military stories every day.